Hey guys, and welcome back to GSL Uncut, episode number 8. On today's episode of the podcast, Melissa and I are speaking to Karie Lee Knoke. She is a former contestant from season 9 of the very popular TV show Alone, which is put out by the History Channel, I believe. That TV show is actually made available across a lot of the streaming platforms that you find online. We encountered her particular season of the show via Netflix, if you want to check it out. She agreed to come out here to discuss her experience with completing the TV show, where she spent 75 days out alone by herself with very limited tools or resources in the Canadian wilderness during the late fall and early winter. She is a very rugged, very tough woman, such a unique individual to have a long form discussion with. We really enjoyed the talk that we had with her. Hopefully you guys will enjoy listening to it. Without any further ado, here is Karie Lee Knoke. Hi, Karie Lee.
Hi, Jamie.
Thank you so much for coming out here. We are honored to have you. You are actually our first outside guest. That's not like a family member or anything, so we're a little nervous about this, but very grateful to you for being willing to come out here, and we're big fans, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. It's a beautiful place.
Thank you very much. So yeah, it was funny because Alone is actually one of the only shows, I think it may be the only show besides maybe Meat Eater, that we watch as a family. And it's just something that we get super excited about when the new seasons come out. And then we have a game where each of the kids picks a contestant to root for the whole time. And I think Nevaeh's contestant got out first. So she was like, well, I'm out. But Eli selected you and he was like, she's going to go all the way. And so we were like, well, I don't know, because, you know, has a woman only won once?
A woman has not won on the Alone show yet, except for Wonia won Alone Frozen, which is a side show.
Oh, okay.
A spin-off from Alone, but she is the first woman to win.
Oh, okay. Well, he had his money on you for sure. So
And Wonia deserves it. She worked really hard. She lasted 72 days her first time out on season 6.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm happy she did that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you spent 75 days in the Canadian wilderness, correct?
Yes.
And so what is your personal background? How did you grow up? Is this something that you fell into as an adult, or is this just the way that you were raised?
Kind of both. I mean, I was raised, we went backpacking a lot on the weekends, or we would go canoeing. And being a child of the 60s and 70s, there's a lot of green spaces that we could go play in.
Sure.
So we played in the woods after school and made shelters and tree houses and all that. But when I was 8 years old, I read My Side of the Mountain and fell in love with that book. And I wanted to be just like that guy, to go out with nothing but my knife and survive. And so in a way, I've been kind of preparing since then, but I didn't have any mentorship or anybody teaching me anything. But anytime I got any teeny little morsel of like, oh, that's edible, I'm like, oh, okay. Click into the brain reservoir there. But it wasn't until 2006 that I met other primitive skills people, and I was introduced to the primitive skills gatherings. I made my first bow drill fire in 2006, did my first brain tanning, and then went to my first gathering in 2007 at Winter Count in Arizona, and just fell in love with people. I was like, this is my tribe. These are the people. And I've got a lot of friends who are native and taught me how to bead. And that was back in the 90s. So I've had a connection with either Native American people or the primitive skills people, and both just been feeding me ever since. So you could say I've been preparing for the Alone show for at least 50 years.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's your calling, essentially.
Yeah.
Would you say that? Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Very cool. So we noticed in watching the show that you maintained a very upbeat and positive attitude throughout. I don't know how you managed to do that, but do you think that it had a tremendous impact? Did you find that to be beneficial?
Definitely, because I'm also an energy medicine practitioner. And so I think I'm the first contestant in all seasons that have an energy or healing practice. And I might be wrong about that, but I was doing acupressure on myself out there.
Really?
I was doing a whole energy routine in the morning. They did show me singing songs.
You seemed very happy out there and content. You really did.
I was in my element. Like I said, this is something I've been waiting to do my whole life.
Right.
And I was just, it was hard work. My muscles, my leg muscles, every time I had to hike up that hill from the river, which was every day, I was tired, but I was doing something I loved. And when you're in love with what you're doing, life becomes easy. So I didn't feel like I was struggling. I never felt like I was struggling, but it was hard work for sure.
Sure.
And the songs I would sing would lift my heart. And I was singing a Cree song called Wanishka, which is a morning song. It means good morning. The birds are already singing, like, wake up, wake up. The birds are already singing. It's time to greet this beautiful land we live on. And that song has a really upbeat. So when I was tired, I was like, okay, I've got to sing Wanishka because that's going to keep me going. You know, it's kind of like when you have to clean the house and you put your favorite rock tune on. That's what I was doing.
I love that the show put the drums behind the song that you did too.
I just got shivers.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And even with my soul song, I just received that song before I went out because I wanted a song to remember why I was there when times got tough and I was tired. And I didn't even sing that song till towards the end when I was really tired and remembering why I'm here. And when I sang that song, I was amazed that they put that drum beat behind it. And when I watched it, it's like, wow, the producers really got me. They really got me on that one.
It's so good. It's really powerful with the drum beat behind it.
It was.
Yeah.
We were like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And they put a lot of really spiritual type music on our whole season for all of the contestants.
Right.
I mean, Benji's doing Qigong and, Igor's doing yoga. And I'm watching the new season 10 and the music's totally different. In our season, they really changed up the soundtrack. And they're doing the same thing for season 10. It's way different on season 10.
Interesting. They do such a good job of putting a show together. It's so well recorded and edited.
Yeah. Well, Eli and Kaimani, they were arguing over whether you were going to win or the guy who actually won was going to win.
Juan Pablo,
yeah. And it was funny because that was Kaimani's guy. That's our older son. And then you were Eli's girl. And then both of them were saying who was more positive. And it was never about who had the best skills, who was the buffest. It was always about who had the best attitude. And so I thought that was really interesting that the kids identified you two, the two winners essentially of the show, the two that lasted 75 days based on your attitude.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, attitude is everything. There was a period of time where I had been rating food that I get. So every squirrel is another day I get to be here. A grouse is 2 days I get to be here. And a fish, depending on the size, is so many days. And the muskrat was at least 3 days. Yeah. I was like, yes. But I went through a period of time where I started missing the squirrels and I was getting down on myself. Like, I'm missing the squirrel by 1 inch. Every time it was 1 inch. Like, now my story became every squirrel I don't get is one more day I don't get to be here. So my cup went from half full to half empty and it was really weighing down on me. And then I had this really profound dream, which would take an hour to say what that dream is, but it was really profound. And I woke up that morning and I did a little bit of energy work on myself and I took the message I got out of that dream and in a way I put on this shirt of this new attitude. And it was the practice of the dream. The message was really about, I am proud of who I am. I am proud of what I've done so far. I'm humble about it. And I'm practicing the art of humility. That was the message I got. And from then on, I could actually, if I missed a squirrel, I could actually laugh at myself like, oh, you bugger, I'll get you tomorrow. And and then I could laugh at myself because I had black teeth, which was really, really, really embarrassing. Like, oh my God, I'm on national TV and I look like a meth head.
You were brushing with charcoal, right?
No, my teeth turned black because the citric acid in the raspberry leaf tea turned my water black and was staining my teeth. Wow. And the berries did the same thing. It was stripping the iron off my cast iron pot. The horsetail, I was brushing my teeth with a horsetail and it would turn them back, well, almost white.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it was funny because you were still trying to do the hygiene thing, which I didn't see a lot of the other people trying to do. You're still trying to wash your hair and stuff like that. Like, I totally understand that you would want to, it would be a little bit of normalcy you could maybe try to regain.
Yeah. I washed my hair 3 times when it was warm. And after that, you didn't need to because your body is so clean. There's no toxins going in. You don't stink. Your hair doesn't get oily like it did towards the beginning.
Yeah.
And, you don't really feel like you need a shower.
Interesting.
Yeah, you'd think you'd be coming out totally ripe.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's not the case. You smell like smoke for sure, but
Yeah. I was wondering that, when the family member would come at the end, I'm like, ooh, and they're all hugging up. I was like, like you would think, but yeah, I guess that makes sense because your body would be totally cleansed. And I mean, you've almost gone through starvation and everything. All those toxins would be out.
Yeah. I was amazed. Like, this is a good way to detoxify yourself. I don't know if it's a good way, but
How good did that first shower feel? When you
oh
got
my
home?
God. I had braided my hair because it was always in my face and it was just a nuisance. And so I put like 10 different braids in my hair. So when I came out, that first shower was like an hour long, super hot, just warming all the way down to my bones because I was chilled to my bone when I came out.
Oh yeah.
And even my tap out, I did have one more layer I could have put on, but I was toughing it out. And that tap out took hours to film.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got to base camp, like, you guys, I'm cold. Can we just get in the helicopter? Like, we got to do this shot and this shot. And I'm like, okay. It's like, but I got in that shower first thing. I was in there for over an hour, just detangling my hair and just letting all that heat come all the way, penetrating into my bones.
Yeah.
Just needed that. Yeah.
So a couple other things we noticed that made you very unique compared to other people is you were very in tune with the people back home. Like your mom, she had a birthday and you made her a cake. And I thought that's so sweet that you're thinking of her on her birthday, making her a cake. Do you spend every single birthday with your mom?
Not always person to person, but we always celebrate her birthday. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That was really unique. And you even talked to the camera like it was a person. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know if you had made friends with the camera, like at Wilson if the camera had become like a companion for you, or if you were talking to the audience, but it almost seemed like you had made friends with the camera.
Yeah, you have to, because I knew that when I'm talking into this little black hole, that I was talking to millions of people.
Yeah.
So I was talking as if I was talking to an audience or a person. And I don't think I gave my camera a name, but I did treat it as a friend. Like I think they showed where the camera fell over in the wind.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, are you okay?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
You were so playful and upbeat the whole time, seemingly.
Yeah.
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 Well, you have to remember I was playing out my childhood dream. And
Sure.
Yeah, I guess I am playful. And when that first snowstorm came in and I came out of the shelter, at first it was so overwhelming. It snowed 1.5 feet in 3 days. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm so tired. My short little legs, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I thought about tapping out. And that was, Adam had tapped out that day. I had that feeling like, oh, someone's going to tap today. Maybe a lot of people are going to tap today. And then I remembered, oh, I'm from Idaho. What do we do when it snows in Idaho? We play. We go snowboarding. And so that's when I made the snowball, the angel, and then the second storm, that's when I had the snowball fight. That was day 60.
That was really funny.
And that was the day Timogen was tapped. I was supposed to have a medical check that day.
Really?
And they postponed it because Timogen was tapping out. So they went to do that. And that's when I had the snowball fight with myself.
That was a funny little skit. I like the way it was all stitched together.
It was 2.5 hours to film that.
Really?
And then I was exhausted. That's all I did that day. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm back in the shelter. Good night.
You'd make an incredible YouTuber. You totally get it. Yeah.
It's dedication. So one of the things that I found, I think my intrigue with the television show is the fact that you are out there alone. And for myself, I think I would be a little intimidated about where my mind would wander. Did you have any profound personal revelations while you're out there by yourself?
I did, excuse me. I did in my dreams. I had 2 really profound dreams. And there's just so much to do. And every day you set your intention, or you have to tell your camera or production who's watching on the film, today's day number, blah, blah, blah. And today I'm going to do this, this, and this. And you pick 3 things. And you're lucky if you got 2 of them done. But And then at the end of the day, you were supposed to wrap that up of what were your successes and your failures. And I thought that was hard because that's something I don't do in my own normal life.
Sure.
And I think that's what caused me to start judging myself as, I'm failing I'm not a good enough huntress because I'm missing these squirrels. And I think that piece where you're judging yourself is what can cause you to get down. So I think it's really important just to stay in that playful, like, I got this, I'm doing the best I can, and do all those things that make you happy and stay in that state. It's very important.
Yeah, judging yourself is kind of the opposite of the whole message of gratitude, because that's all about humility and looking for the blessings in life. So if you're forced to do that at the end of the day, that does kind of go against.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a point of time at a medical check, I did a little retaliation because after that first snow, I had told the producers that I actually predicted the first snowstorm a month ahead of time because I was so in tune with nature and I could read the weather and I just knew what was coming up a month ahead of time. And I might have freaked them out a little bit. Like, whoa, who's this woman? And it happened to the day.
Wow.
The day before when I was doing the cob oven and trying to finish my wall. I was doing all that because I knew the storm was coming. And at the end of the day, I was exhausted. I wasn't quite done. Like, I just don't think it's going to happen. And then, like, no, it's happening. And so I stayed up till 10 o'clock at night finishing that front wall. And then it snowed 3 days. I forgot where I was going.
Happens all the time.
A retaliation of the...
Retaliation. Oh, yeah. So during that 3-day storm, I wanted to have that experience. And I told production, I want to have that experience when you're in your shelter and you're warm and you're comfortable and there's a storm outside and you don't care because you're in that shelter. I wanted to experience that really deep place of surviving in something really tough, but thriving in it.
Right.
And if I had a plate of food, bonus. And the morning before that storm, I got that squirrel. And the editing kind of mixed it all up as far as the order that it happened, but I had that squirrel and I saved it. I put it in my pocket. So I'm going to have this tomorrow because there's going to be a storm and I want food.
Yeah.
But during that 3 days, I asked myself, I could walk out tomorrow and feel satisfied. And so after that storm, I had my medical check and I had a retaliation. I told the director, I said, I'm done with doing these to-do today lists and I'm not going to judge myself with successes or failures and I'm just going to eat up the rest of my food and I might craft a little moment to moment and I'm just going to do what I want and you guys can come back and get me in a few days. They're like, okay. They walked away. But then the next morning I thought about things and that's when I remembered, like, yeah, I've satisfied my childhood dream, okay. But I was out there for this bigger picture, and I remembered my friend that I was doing this in honor of her because she had cancer. And I didn't really understand what that bigger picture was yet, but I knew it was beyond me. And so I asked myself, have you given it your all? Like, no, I'm not done yet.
And remind me, her Colette, was it?
Colette, yes.
Colette. So did she make it to watch you on the show?
Yeah, when I left, she had told me that, because I had asked her, like, how am I going to know if you're gone while I'm out there? She says, you'll know. I said, besides, I want to live long enough to watch you on TV. Like, wow, that's a pretty tall order. And she watched me for the first episode and then passed away on the second episode. Wow. So she didn't get to watch the part where she came in, and I'm just really stoked and happy that the producers showed that part and honored her life like that. Which I didn't know they were going to do for sure. We don't know anything till we watch it. I did get to tell her her part of the story, but she didn't get to see it on TV, but she did get to see the first episode.
Wow. That's amazing. The human spirit is, she lived up to that, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and she ended up being my inspiration at the end because, to tell you the truth, the fruit leather, because it tasted like cast iron, was really hard for me to eat, and that was all I had left. And little nickel-sized bites of pemmican every day. The last 2 weeks, that's all I ate. Wow. And And I had tons of it, but it was really hard to eat. And I was like, if she can stomach chemo and radiation for 8 or 9 months, I can stomach this fruit leather. And that was hard.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah. That's amazing to have that inspiration there.
Yeah, it was a total flip of the coin on that. So
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it just seemed like a lot of your reflection and everything was probably what kind of carried you through, which, I mean, a lot of the contestants do reflect, but there was just something different about yours. Like even when you went into the story on whether or not you're a mother, that really touched my heart, because as a mother, I was like, yes, you are. Like when you were asking that question, I'm like, no, she needs to know that yes, she is.
Yeah. That was the night of day 52. So 52 is the 4 cycles of 13 years. So every 13 years, you had to go through rites of passage. And so at 52, you become a grandmother, of which I had my grandmother's ceremony already. So I was talking about rites of passages was the bigger conversation that I was having for the camera, in front of the camera. I was talking about this whole bigger conversation. They just showed the one little part that I was talking about my miscarriage.
Yeah.
And in a sense, I was being a little sarcastic. I was like, I suppose that makes me a mother. But it was out of context of my bigger conversation.
Okay.
And I know that they showed that because it would be so touching. Mm-hmm. And I did have to work with that. And I do know that I'm a mother. It was my rites of passage into motherhood. Mm-hmm. And I know my children are in the spirit world, and we hang out. Yeah, so they come visit me every once in a while, or I feel them in a breeze or something. And
It's amazing.
And but that was pretty special that they had showed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was beautiful. Did you get a lot of feedback from viewers
I did.
on that specifically? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I was able to be of some inspiration and to help other people who had gone through that process, not just women, but men going through that process too, because they've lost a child as well.
Absolutely.
And so in the end, it was like, well, they didn't really show that big picture, but that's not what was important.
Yeah.
And so I was happy that I could help to be of some kind of consolation for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Support system back.
Exactly. I think it's a club that no one wants to be in, but yet we all need that support. So
yeah, and it happens a lot.
it does more than people realize.
So what would you say, in looking back, was the most enjoyable aspect of being out there on your own? And maybe what was the worst part of being out there by yourself?
I think being alone was the best part.
We're very similar, you and I.
Yeah. I'm very comfortable with being alone because I do a lot of stuff alone. Hiking or go play and I love being sociable. I love doing things with my friends, but I'm very comfortable being alone. Yeah, I think just being out there and being connected to the land and the ancestors of the land, I really felt supported. I didn't feel alone at all. I had trees and animals as friends, and these birds would come. Every time I was out hunting, these little chickadees would be checking on me, like, "Oh, what you doing? What you doing? What you looking for?" Or those other birds, the gray jays. The gray jays swooped by every day, and just having that connection with the land, I felt like the ancestors were there, really supporting me, and I was really guided. There was a lot of my intuition came up, and I felt that the ancestors actually told me how to build my shelter because I was perplexed. When I first came out, I had the flu. So I had the flu really bad for the first 2 weeks. And so I was just like, my head is a basketball. My body's fat because I gained so much weight and just feeling exhausted. From the first day, I was exhausted.
Wow.
And perplexed. And then one day it just hit me like, oh my God, this whole hillside is clay. And I just looking at the landscape. And then that's when they told me, lift up my skin, which is the topsoil. Lift up my skin, dig in the clay, dig down, push the clay to the side, build your walls, put your raptors on top, then put my skin back on top of you and I will keep you warm.
Wow.
And it was just kind of like this daydream, like, wow. So all night I was like, my mental logical mind clicked in like, okay, we're going to do this and this and this. Okay, got it. And then I spent the next 2 weeks building it. And, but that support, and this is something that was not on the film, I felt so deeply. And then when I came back in, there was a local Native woman who was the housekeeper for the fishing lodge. And she came into my room, and was really timid at first. And she's like, "Can I give you a hug?" I'm like, "Of course." And she came in, gave me a hug. She started crying. She says, "Oh my God, I've been praying for you and hoping that you would be okay, and praying for your safety, that you would have everything you needed. And I asked the ancestors of my land to take care of you and provide for you and help you and protect you and keep you safe." And she was telling me this. I'm crying like, oh my God, girl, do you know what you just did?
Yeah.
And why me? And so I felt like I had a lot of spiritual support that I had no idea that was coming, in my dreams. And that feeling of the ancestors supporting, and then having a Native woman asking her ancestors to take care of me. And I'm from the other side of the continent,
right.
And I'm a foreigner. And I made that clear. They gave us some diamond willow to make as an offering. And so second day I was there, I made my prayer and said, this is my intention. This is why I'm here. And, my intention of wanting to connect, see how deeply I could spiritually connect with the land, and made that offering. And I am a foreigner in this land, and this is why I'm here. I'm not just because of a show. And I even apologized. I don't know what's going to happen here. There's going to be helicopters, there's going to be boats, people cutting down live trees. I'm not here to do that. I don't have control over that, but this is why I'm here. So I introduced myself, and I think that made all the difference in the world. Yeah.
Beautiful. So you cared and you were respectful about the fact that, your presence there was maybe just disturbing the norm.
Because I believe in spirit. I believe in the spirits of the trees and the land, and I'm very logical. I'm actually very scientifical. So it was a spiritual experiment. And I even did a few days of, okay, I'm not going to do any of that for a few days and see what happens. I didn't catch fish.
Yeah.
And as soon as I slowed down and I sang a song to the river and I said, I really need food, 5 minutes, boom, I had a fish. 10 more minutes, I had a second fish.
Wow. So you were just very in tune with everything, the rhythm of everything around you.
And I think they showed that because I said, wow, I slow down, I took my time, and boom, I got a fish.
Amazing.
They didn't show the second one. But
Yeah, they didn't show you fishing at all, correct? Or did they?
just that one fish.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that part.
Because I assume that there's a lot of food being caught that is not shown, because obviously you guys wouldn't have lasted as long as. But yeah, 75 days. So you were out there as long as the person who won. When did you find out that you had gotten second?
So he was out for 78 because the person who wins, the length of time is determined by the person in second. So once I came in, they flew his partner, Jennifer, in, which takes 2 days just to even get there when the weather's good.
Wow.
So, and it was day 78 that they went and got him. And the last night he was out there was -9.
Wow.
Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah.
I was like, come on, you can do it.
Oh, wow. So I wonder what would happen. So if he tapped, but he was still the winner, how does that work?
I don't know. I was going to ask that question before he went out, and I never did.
Yeah.
They're like, we're coming to get you. It takes like 3 days.
Yeah.
I think they might just say, oh, well, yeah, just hang tight. We'll come get you. We can't come get you. Because they have to have a winner for the show, right?
Right.
So the premise of the show, for maybe some viewers who aren't aware, you win $500,000 if you were the last person standing. So when they filled you in, at what point did they actually let you know that you were the runner-up?
They didn't.
Really?
No, they don't want you to know. But I came in, and I think it was the second day there. I wanted my phone back so I could call my family to let them know that I'm okay and I'm out. And as soon as I turned my phone on, I got messages from the other participants, and they're all saying, Karie, you're so badass. Like, what are you talking about? You did awesome. Like, what are you talking about? And it was right at nighttime, so there's nobody I could ask.
Yeah.
And then my mind was up. I was up all night like, oh, what? Am I second? Wait, no, because I'm sure Terry or Benji's still out there, or Terry or Jesse is all these people who I thought who in my mind is like, oh, they're better than me, so they're going to still be out there. So there's all those what if questions. Oh, what if I stayed and I got that snowshoe hare I was tracking and blah, blah, blah. And then the next day I had to fish around and I finally got someone to spill the beans. It's like, and then I was in disbelief. I laughed for 3 days, like hysterically, like, no way. I just couldn't believe it.
So had you known, would you have toughed it out longer, or would you still have been done?
My body was done. If I had that third snowstorm, I was making, I really wish I had stayed one more day because I was making some Roycroft snow skis and all I had to do was tie them together. And that was my big debate. And I was kind of teasing the camera. I wasn't really going to tap that day, but I had holes in my gloves. My fingers would be cold to tie the knots. I didn't want to have to start a fire. That's a lot of work to keep my fingers warm. And had I finished those skis, I would have tromped around. Then I would have seen the snowshoe hare tracks, got excited, would have stayed. I would have been trying to get that snowshoe hare for even longer. So I might have stayed a couple of more days. I really wanted to stay to day 76. But in the end, I was really just killing my own body.
Yeah.
My blood pressure was really low. My vital signs were not strong. And that was one thing I promised myself. It's like, I'm going to give it my all, but I'm not going to kill myself.
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm, at that time I'm 57 and it takes a lot longer to recuperate. And I would not have beat Juan Pablo unless he had had an accident of some kind. He was 30 and his vital signs were strong. And
Which is amazing given his strategy.
Fasting.
Of fasting.
yeah, well, it was smart. People think, oh, that was cheating, but he shut his digestive system down. I kept mine going by just eating little nibbles every day. It's just two different strategies. It worked for him. It could have backfired and not worked for him.
Sure.
But the fact is that it did work for him, and he was preserving his calories, and he wasn't cheating. He was surviving.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think all the bravery that all of you displayed was so impressive, but with you specifically. And if this is something I can touch upon, you were an older contestant in the field. Were you the oldest?
I am the second oldest of all the seasons,
Wow.
and the oldest of all the women.
Which I think makes what you accomplished all that much more impressive. And I don't mean to
Not at all.
I'm just speaking very frankly with you if I can, because
He doubted you.
I was just going to say, I honestly became a little dismissive of you in the beginning when I saw you and I took note of your age and all that. I kind of shrugged you off, to be honest with you. So I owe you an apology because you proved me, you couldn't have proven me more wrong. You were an absolute badass. And
Yeah.
seriously, I could not have lasted a 10th of the time that you lasted out there. So I find that so interesting. And have you gotten a lot of fan feedback that kind of plays into that at all?
Yeah. A lot of older women inspired because they don't think they can do that, or they don't have the physical ability, and so it's inspiring. Like, no, you can just have to keep moving, and I think my age and my size worked for my benefit. I don't need quite as many calories. Like on average, even if you're eating, you tend to lose a pound a day.
Right.
I lost three quarters of a pound a day, but because I had the flu, I was slow from the get-go.
That's amazing.
And I just maintained that slow pace of like trudging along, and I'm not foraging, going hunting and trudging through the woods and trying to find my game. I did hike around and look around, but I wasn't really pushing myself physically. And, the lesson, one of the teachings I've got from a military survival, top-notch survival expert, he said, don't let your blood pressure, or don't let your heartbeat come up. Never sweat. Keep your heart rate down. So even hiking up that hill, I would start, my heart's beating, and I would just stop. There's no hurry. I just keep it slow and melodic and do your thing. But it's kind of the tortoise and the hare.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So then I was in tortoise mode.
Well, it was so inspiring we both turned 40 this year, but just seeing what you did out there, I can tell you that I was personally inspired, and I had to eat a bunch of crow in the process because, like I said, I was like, oh, I don't know about this, and you thrived, and I think that's why I definitely took note of the fact that you were so upbeat and positive, seemingly the entire time. I'm sure you had your hardships along the way, but kind of like you said, I think it definitely speaks to attitude being everything, and it was incredible. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think, that attitude of gratitude, and that's definitely, and I think that we lose that in modern society because life is hard and there's a lot of hardships and it's very easy to wallow. And it's so easy to not be grateful because there's so many little things that go wrong in people's lives or big things that go wrong in people's lives. There's a lot of tragedy just in life. So that being gracious or having a, attitude of gratitude is a choice and you have to work at it. So, I mean, you must really work at it and really tell yourself you had that little note that you brought with you.
We did. There's a bubblegum machine sticker
Yeah.
for like 25 cents. And I've had that thing for years. Like, I'm going to take this. Yeah, do your dream, because it was my childhood dream.
Yeah.
And my adult dream as well. But I think, and to be quite honest, it's harder to keep that attitude of gratitude in this life.
It is.
I struggle with that day to day. And it was really challenging to come back and experience. Overwhelmingly tons of grief about the excessiveness that our modern life is. And when I came back, I couldn't see people. And I was so relieved to wake up in the morning in my ear, like, oh God, I'm back in the woods again. Thank God. And yeah, I had to work through that for many, many months. And my girlfriends came and helped me and held me in space and in a ceremonial space and just helped me work through it. But it was really hard I lost all my compassion and I lost all my filters because I'd been talking to a camera.
Yeah.
And so I was saying things like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to insult you. But it was really challenging and difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that reintegration process of going from one extreme, and not that North Idaho is very populated by any means, and I'm sure you live a very relatively simple life, but it's got to be such an interesting thing to one day be alone out in the wilderness on the east coast of Canada, to being on a helicopter and then an airplane making your way back home, and then sitting in a vehicle driving with everybody, making your way back home. What was that process like for you?
It was a slow integration, because I was in a refeeding or aftercare. And once Juan Pablo came in, they evacuated all of us out of the fishing lodge. So there's the aftercare team, the production team, the kitchen. The lodge we were in was not made for winter, so they had to shut it down. So we went to Goose Bay and actually stayed in hotel rooms for a week while we were recuperating. So I was 12 days in aftercare, and Juan Pablo he graduated from aftercare faster than me because of because his vital signs were strong. My blood pressure wouldn't equalize, so they were worried about me. So it was gradual until we flew into Toronto, and that's where I kind of lost it. And I just kind of had to hold my breath, and then landed in Spokane, and then I was crying when we got here. But when I woke up at home, I was like, oh, I can breathe. Because it takes 2 or 3 days to make that travel.
Sure.
Yeah.
So was it jarring for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned the guilt that you just with the, because you're going from absolute scarcity to, like you said, just excessiveness everywhere. And we live in a modern time where there's so many distractions and you're constantly being peppered with things that are vying for your attention.
Yeah. It wasn't so much about, I live pretty minimally.
Sure.
So it wasn't about me being excessive. And this is going to sound arrogant.
No.
This is where the judgment part comes. It's our society.
Right.
Like flying into Toronto and seeing this flashing billboard signs. And I was literally screaming out the window because I didn't have filters. I was talking out loud. I was looking out the window like, why do we need flashing billboard signs to tell us where to buy cigarettes? If you smoke, you know where to buy cigarettes. And I was just seeing all the excessiveness of how our society lives. And that was hard. I couldn't be around it. But at the same time, I didn't want to be that person that's judging people like, oh, you're bad because you live in a big house or you're driving that fancy car. Like, that's not how I want to live. It's not. But I didn't want to be in that place. And it was just easier for me to just stay home, take care of myself, stay just in small groups and with friends. I wanted to see friends, but I couldn't even go to the grocery store I couldn't go to the health food store. Just, for one, nobody's supposed to know that I'm gone, but I live in a small town, and so word travels fast, and I couldn't handle the shock or anybody coming up to me and saying something. It's like somebody else, I had friends had to go do my shopping for me. I just had to lay it low for a while.
Such an interesting transition that you got to experience, and so few of us get to experience. So I was curious about that too.
Yeah, you kind of got to remove the veil. Because I mean, depression rates are really high, higher than they've ever been, but yet we have more than we've ever had at any point in history. And I find that really interesting. It's like the more you have, the more noise and chaos in your life, the more miserable people become. And the more that people expect, the less satisfied they are. No matter what they get. I mean, you can, like Mike Tyson, talking about it doesn't matter how many houses I had or tigers or women or money. It was never enough. I was never happy. And it wasn't until he started to strip all that away that he's a weird example to bring up. But, you just think of someone who's like highly successful that has reached the ultimate height of success. And so often, like the Michael Jacksons of the world, so often they are so miserable. And then you can find people that lived back in history that had tiny cabins with 8 kids living in there, and they were just so grateful for hot food. And there was gratitude and satisfaction in that.
And that's an interesting thing about the show too, on participants. And maybe I'm just going to pick on the men. I'm being just very, very generic here, but when we're playing out our daily lives, we have roles, we have identities, and you're a mom, you're a dad, you're a farmer or logger, or you have all this, everything around you identifies who you are. And then when you go out in the woods and you're alone, there's nobody there to tell you who you are. There's your identity, all that stuff is stripped away, and it's just yourself. And season 2, you would have seen Larry Roberts go through that, a few other participants as well. But I think for men, that can be hard when there's no identity, because they're the provider for the family. And then when they have no family to provide for, well, who am I now? Or they're out there like, oh, I'm hunting and fishing. I'm doing what I love to do. And then they feel guilty because the wife's at home doing everything and you're having fun.
Interesting.
And I might be wrong about this, but I just think that's a big thing.
I think you're right on.
Yeah.
Completely. That's why I said, I think for myself, if I were to place myself in a situation like that, I'd be afraid of where it is that my mind would go, because so much of my own personal identity is wrapped up in the things that you mentioned, being a husband, a father, a provider, all of that. So it's really interesting. It makes me want to do it, honestly. It makes me want to try it, because I'm so fascinated with stripping all of that away and just boiling things down to, what really matters, and doing a lot of self-reflection and stuff like that. I just find that so intriguing about the experience that you had.
That would be really difficult. Yeah, my entire identity is wrapped up in being a mom, and so I think if you took the kids away, what
do we do now?
I feel like I wouldn't know what to do. I think I would. Right. I don't think I would last long.
Yeah, and I was going to say that is also true for some women like Jody Rose, who she was the primary caretaker for her family, and then with her dad. Yeah, and her dad was not. She had this premonition about her family at home, and when she got home, her dad was almost. It was a really bad story about how if she had not come home, her dad would have died.
Yeah,
and then she would have had that guilt.
That would have been There's no amount of money worth that ever. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of funny because they dangle this prize money, and you had a real goal for using the $500,000 for building your school and building your home on the land that you bought over in Sandpoint. And so when that's dangling there, but then you strip away all the stuff and the material things, it's two polar opposites. Like, does all of a sudden the money not matter so much?
That's a great question. My primary purpose was not about the money. It was about the experience. But then I would ask myself questions like, doing my daily energy routine to keep myself vital and resilient. It's really easy at home to think, I'm too tired. I don't want to do that today or skip it. And when I felt that out there, I'd ask myself, well, if you had $500,000, would you do it? And like, of course I'm going to do it. So the money was actually keeping my incentive up to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Like, why do we do that? Why can't we take care of ourselves in regular life? Why do we need this big chunk of money to be our incentive? But winning was a bonus, would have been a bonus. And yeah, that would have been very helpful. And it did keep me going. Like I said, it was an incentive. Being 57 and buying property, and then it wasn't until I came home I realized, like, wait a minute, I don't have 30 working years to pay for this.
Yeah.
And I live alone. It's not like I have a partner or a husband to help out, so I'm doing it all myself. But the school, I have a GoFundMe campaign, and that's been helping tremendously. Getting the yurt put up is the outdoor classroom. The campground is done. I've been getting donations of canvas tents and camping gear, and people have come out to the land and lend a hand, and it's coming together. I just bought that solar generator last week and trying to get that to work. So now I have power and trying to get the Starlink to work. It's like, I got to cut a couple trees down because I don't have direct access to the north. But it's all coming together. So yeah, I'm hoping to raise the funds so I can get a well in, have a garden again, grow some herbs. I miss having a garden. And I need a storage shed and a indoor kitchen. I have a outdoor kitchen, but it's a canvas kitchen. So I'd like to have that walled in because we do have bears and mice. And I've already had a bear try to get into my kitchen once.
Oh, wow.
No.
I sprayed some bear spray into the kitchen. And because he was there one morning and then 2 days later he came back and he got a whiff of that cayenne pepper on the ground and ran through the woods. I heard him. He ran and ran and ran. I texted my neighbors and bear coming your way.
Maybe he had a bad experience. He's like PTSD.
No, he got a whiff of that pepper and he hasn't been back. But I know it's a matter of time before another bear comes. So I would like to get that walled in, especially before winter. So there's some outbuildings that really need to go up soon.
Yeah.
And of course, I would love to have a tiny house for myself.
Yeah, of course. Yes. We have really harsh winters out here and they're long.
So 5 months of snow, yes.
Yeah. I mean, come April and it starts snowing in April, you're like, stop it, Idaho. Like, because you just want to get out there and get back to work. So yeah, August is kind of that time where all of a sudden it's like, oh shoot, it's coming. You start getting that feeling of, get your firewood. And
Yeah, I'm starting to feel guilty. Like, I want to go play in the sun today, but I really should start thinking about,
Yeah, it's a constant dilemma that we have here.
Yeah.
Too. Same thing. What are the types of things that you were hoping to be able to teach at your school? What skills is it that you're going to be primarily focusing on?
I'm primarily focusing on the primitive wilderness skills. So survival skills, but on a primitive, meaning I'm not from a military background. Being able to live, because I've been living out in the woods for 25 years. And so it's a mixture of the primitive wilderness living skills, off-grid living, and nature connection. And I'm really hoping, I'm kind of a bridge walker. I don't like to have genres and boxes of things that we do. To me, it's all one, the herbalism, the energy medicine, the connection with nature, and the primitive skills. The primitive skills really bring up our roots of where we come from. It's in our DNA. And it's fascinating to watch people like getting your first bow drill fire and just what it does to your body. Like even collecting huckleberries, there's something happens. It's we all have this survival instinct inside us that we don't feel because we can go to the store. Right. But when that comes up, it really resonates with people. So it lights people up.
Yes.
And when, like I said, your identity, when you're out in nature and your identity's stripped and it's just you, then there's that aspect of like, whoa, who am I? What am I passionate about? And I really want to help people step into what they're passionate about. Because if everybody was doing what they're passionate about, can you imagine what the world would be?
Yeah.
And so I want to help facilitate that. And yes, there's garbage in the way. And as a practitioner, I'm there to help clean some of that garbage and step into what you're really passionate about. So that's
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Beautiful. So do you have a website or a Facebook page that people can check out, anything like that? Social media, anything?
yes. My website is karieleeknoke.com. The hardest part is spelling it.
We'll put it down below in the description.
Yeah, we'll put that in there in the GoFundMe as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's where the Sacred Cedars Wilderness School, all the classes are listed on that page as well. Karie Lee Knoke on Facebook, Sacred Cedars Wilderness School on Facebook, and Instagram as Karie Lee Knoke.
Okay.
That's amazing. Well, we really, really appreciate you coming here. And we are so inspired by you. I love the reminder to just be grateful, to put all that other stuff aside and to go after your passions. It's definitely what you put out there. I mean, an 8-year-old little boy watching recognized it right away. And I just found that so interesting. It made me pay attention to your story so much because he's a really deep little boy. And he was like, that one.
That one.
And I just thought that was so great that he saw that right away. And it just made us kind of perk up and pay attention.
Yeah.
I'm so honored by that.
We were so inspired through your whole journey.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah,
That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Thanks for coming out. We really appreciate it. Thank you for speaking so just bluntly and honestly as well. We really appreciate it. And you driving up here, all of that. So
Yeah.
anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. We're going to get things wrapped up. We will be back next Wednesday with a new podcast. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you.